It's the beginning of a new month and it's the middle of the year, which is a little scary, but that also means it's time to do a little reading check-in and have a look at what I read in June and set some intentions for reading for the month of July. Hi, it's Erin. It's reading journal time. We're starting out a little bit differently to usual this time. We are at the wonderful Stash World, which is a stationery store in the Valley, at a stationery social night that they run called Sticker Hangs, and I'm setting up 2 of my review spreads here because this is a really good opportunity to just do some journaling and hang out with friends. It's a little bit tricky to film in this situation because I don't want to be imposing on anyone else's enjoyment of sticker hangs, but I just kind of take along a little tripod and a little pocket-sized camera and do what I can, and I think it turned out okay. You can kind of still see what's going on here, right? The review page we're setting up on the left side at the moment is for the final Gambit, which is the 3rd book in the Inheritance Games series by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. Big shout out to Holly for lending me her pen so that I could use it for my heading here. Thanks, Holly. This one's a really fun series. It's a YA, so the characters are quite young and a little bit immature. I know not every 30-something-year-old woman like me is into that kind of thing, but I quite enjoy a YA moment personally. It's a little bit mystery, there are lots of puzzles to be solved, there's a romance element. Set in modern-day US, but it does have a bit of an academia element, hence the decorations I've chosen. And we're moving on to the right page now. This one is for The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo by Taylor Jenkins Reid, which is the Literary Ladies book club pick for the month of June/July, because we don't really stick to a month-to-month thing. The Literary Ladies is my book club that I have with some friends in real life. Evelyn Hugo, I've heard a lot about this book in the past, and if it wasn't chosen as a book club pick, I probably wouldn't have reached for it anytime, but I'm glad that it was chosen as a book club pick because I really liked it. I know there's a lot of hype around Taylor Jenkins Reid as an author, and I started Malibu Rising one time and I just couldn't get into it, but I might have just not been in the right place to be reading it at the time, but this one I really enjoyed. I listened to the audiobook. The main character wears a green dress as kind of her signature quite often, so I've included a lot of green in my review spread here, and I'm using some stickers that I just had, some leftover alphabet stickers that are quite ornate. They are not era appropriate for most of this book, but they'll do. Sticker Hangs is a really fun social event, so I don't go in and do my actual reviews when I'm there because that's something I kind of need to sit in the quiet and think about, but it's really fun to set up the pretty parts of the reading journal together with other people who really get your journaling enthusiasm, you know? Before we go any further, I want to introduce you to my wonderful video sponsor today, Skillshare. I've been a pro photographer for the past 12 years, it's literally my day job, but I really didn't have a handle on getting the best out of my phone's camera until now. I have a little trip coming up and some events that I'm not allowed to take a pro camera to, but I still really want to get some great photos for my memory keeping journal spreads I've been doing, so I wanted to make sure I could do that with my phone. Of course, Skillshare had just the class to help me. It's called iPhone Photography, How to Take Pro Photos on Your iPhone with teacher Dale McManus. I skimmed over some of the parts on photo composition and editing since I have a pretty solid grasp on those already, but Dale's advice on iPhone camera settings for specific situations is so good. I actually had no idea you can use live photo mode to take a long exposure shot. That's amazing. But Skillshare is not just about photography classes. It's actually the internet's biggest online learning community, offering literally thousands of classes for all skill levels across so many areas. With Skillshare, you always learn by doing, so at the end of the class, you'll have not just a bunch of new knowledge, but also a completed project to show for it. You can stream classes on demand at your own pace with variable video speeds and a range of subtitle languages too. From animation to videography, creative writing to calligraphy, and even the more businessy side of creative industries, Skillshare has the class you're looking for. If you're on summer break right now, it's the perfect opportunity to get started on that new thing you wanted to learn. No more some days, you can make it happen now. The first 500 people to use my link in the description will get a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Thanks to Skillshare for sponsoring this video and finally teaching me how to use my phone's camera to the best of its ability. We've teleported back to my home office now and we're finishing up these spreads for the final Gambit and for the 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Check out how this book cover just flies off my desk completely. Wow, it's like it's propelled. I use my HP Sprocket for printing most of my book covers, and I have a short about how I do that I'll link to here and in the description for you in case you want to check that out. I use that method for all of the book covers for my review pages and also the ones that go on my monthly kind of overview pages where I just track everything that I read in a month. I do have some slightly different sized book covers elsewhere, so I print those just with a home printer so I can size them really specifically, but the Sprocket works pretty well for this purpose, so I just keep doing it. Also, I had an issue with my tripod, the one that allows me to shoot top-down footage over my desk, so that's why we're kind of on the angle this time. I'm very sorry, this isn't how I usually like to do this kind of thing, but we had to work with what we had to make this happen this month, so some of the footage is not the way that it usually would be. About halfway through the video, we'll switch back to how we usually do. So let's talk about these books. The Final Gambit is the third book in the Inheritance Games series, which is a YA series, kind of a mystery puzzle kind of a story with some romance and some found family built in there. It's really fun. If you do want to read these ones, I actually recommend reading them on ebook or paperback or hardback or something rather than the audiobooks. I've been reading them on audio, and do you know what? They're actually not bad audiobooks, but I do feel like the delivery is a little bit childish, sometimes a bit overacted, particularly in lines that I think are supposed to have quite a bit of gravitas, but then are delivered in a way that kind of cheapens them and they lose their meaning a bit, I think. So I don't think it's a bad experience, and I'm enjoying listening to the audiobooks enough that I haven't gone out of my way to switch, but that's just something to keep in mind. So The Final Gambit got a final core pile rating from me of 6.57, which made it a 3 3/4 star read for me. And you can't totally see it, it's not completely in focus, I'm very sorry, but on my Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo spread on the opposite side, I've added a couple of quotes, which when I'm listening to audiobooks, I quite often find it difficult to keep track of quotes that I enjoy, but this one I went out of my way to make sure that I had them. The quotes are, "No one goes around throwing caution to the wind unless the wind is blowing their way." And the second one is, "Isn't that the definition of power, watching people kill themselves over something that means nothing to you?" If you aren't familiar with this story, Evelyn Hugo is an old Hollywood actress, and she's telling her story to a journalist who's going to write kind of her tell-all biography. And it turns out she has a lot to tell. I've given this one a 7 on the core pile rating scale, which makes it 4 stars, which I think is pretty good, pretty accurate. I did really enjoy this one, but I don't know if it was like a life-changing book for me, you know? Let's transfer those star ratings and core pile scores over onto my maybe next kind of books that I read in June section, and then we'll carry on. Since The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo was a book club read for me with my Literary Ladies book club, which is some lovely ladies that I know in real life, I thought I'd put that one on my book club page back here. We don't read a book every month, so I don't have one for every month on our tracker here. It looks like we're averaging out to about a book every 2 months, actually. So I just wanted to add the details onto my Literary Ladies page here. At the time I was recording this, we hadn't chosen the book club book for my own Page Majors book club yet. We'll come back and add that later, so stay tuned. But first, I want to add the progress bars for all of the books that I've read so far in the month of June. I've said this in many videos before, and I'm sure I will say it in many videos in the future. Keeping this information is not exactly helpful for me, but I enjoy it and I love the way the page looks at the end, so I'm going to keep doing it because I guess the purpose is enjoyment and pleasure. And I think that's a very valid reason to do something in a journal. So each one of these coloured lines represents a book that I was reading, and it just kind of covers the dates that I started and finished it, so you can see how all of my reading interacted throughout the month. I track all of my reading data with Storygraph and also Goodreads, but mostly Storygraph. I just rely on it a little bit more, and you can follow me on either of those platforms if you'd like to. We can be friends. There are links to those in the description. June was mostly a pretty slow reading month for me, but I managed to kick things up a gear right at the end of the month, and I squeezed in some novellas to try and stay on track for my reading goal. But I also just really enjoy novellas, and I do think that they're also a valid form of reading, so even though they're shorter than other books, that doesn't mean that they're not still books. Also, do you ever just forget to colour in stars on your star rating stamp? I do, apparently. Just flipping back to my book club spread here, because I actually haven't added our June read somehow onto this one. It was Wolves and Daggers by Melanie Karsak. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we get to its review page, but this was our Page Majors book for the month of June. And I have a little bit more catching up to do back in these initial kind of beginning of the year pages too. I want to add some more books to my overall log of all of the books that I've read this year. This is just a list of everything in the order that I read it. So we've got Stardust by Neil Gaiman, which is actually from last month, and The Final Gambit, which is, of course, the Inheritance Games. We just talked about that one. We've got to add The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo on here as well. And one more book that I had finished that we haven't talked about just yet, All This Twisted Glory by Tahereh Mafi, which is the third book in the This Woven Kingdom series. I was a little bit slow getting to this one. It only came out recently, but I sort of forgot. And then when I remembered, I was really excited to read it. And then I was super underwhelmed, which is disappointing. We'll talk about that a little bit more later on too. On that, let's flip forward to my series tracker spread and colour in some of the books here. This was the one that we've just talked about. I've also coloured in one of the Inheritance Games books up in the right corner there. And I have a page that's just for my reading goal for the year too. This 44 that we've just coloured in is actually from last month, and I'm assigning the 491 Tombow to be my colour for the month of June because it kind of matches with my June theme in the monthly themed pages later on. So for now we're only at 3 for the month, but we'll update that as things progress. Also, I realised I hadn't looked at my maybe next, my sort of TBR list for a really long time, so I thought I'd have a look at that, and I couldn't believe how many books I could cross off from it because I've read them. It's wild. It's such a good feeling. We're flashing forward into the future a little bit here, and I've got some more reviews to do before we move on to the monthly themed pages, but this top-down angle, usually I shoot my videos in 4K so that I can edit in 1080p, which allows me to crop in and show you things nice and close. Unfortunately, because of my tripod issues, I'm not able to do that this time. The tripod I have with a boom arm, which is amazing and lets me shoot top-down footage like this usually, can support a pretty heavy camera, and the camera that I usually film with I could not put on the little desk clamp thingy that I have, which is the only other way that I can get this sort of footage, so I had to use a smaller, lighter camera, but in order to be able to film for as long as I needed to, I had to shoot in 1080p, which means that I can't crop in on this footage. I'm sorry, we're just going to have to stick to this kind of boring overhead shot where you can see the whole journal all the time, even if we're only working on just the left or just the right page. Please bear with me. It's not like this for the whole rest of the video, but it is like this for a little while, so I hope you can still see what's going on. We're working on my review page for All This Twisted Glory right now, which we just touched on a little bit. I'm copying the lettering off the cover because these books have the most gorgeous covers. I'm a real sucker for fantasy novel typography, clearly, and I love copying it, but I couldn't quite fit this in the space without taking up too much room and not leaving myself enough space for the actual review, so I adapted it a little and we did Twisted just in a little bit of like cursive hand lettering instead. I don't want to give you too much information about this book because it is the third in a series and therefore inherently spoilery, but I do think it's safe enough to just say that this was a filler book. At the end of the previous book, our heroine of the series found herself in a situation where she was finding out that a lot of things that she thought were true were not true, and she was kind of presented with a difficult choice, and then I feel like this whole book was just her going, which choice should I make, and other people having the same conversation with her over and over and over, which is really disappointing because I love this series so far and I will be continuing it. It's like maybe there was just some stuff they had to get out of the way, but I was really underwhelmed. And it did not need to be as long as it was, I think. I feel like, I mean, I'm not a writer and I'm not an editor, so take my opinions here with a grain of salt, but I do feel like this could have all been done in the beginning of the next book, maybe. Anyway, 5.3 on the Corpile scale, which is not huge for me. This is a 3 1/4 star rating out of me, and I do think that's pretty accurate as to how I felt about this book. Just a bit meh. As well as adding my Corpile rating and my star ratings to each of these books, at the same time, I'm just going to update some progress things as well. I started reading I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston, so I'm going to update that one as well. And I've also got another book I'm adding on here too. That was our book club read Wolves and Daggers for the page pages, so had to pop that in there as well. And of course, we've got to update the total books read as well over here. So The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent is going on there. That's the second full book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, and it has such a long title. Really long titles for these books. That one's going to be the next review page that we set up together, but first I wanted to jump in and set up my monthly pages for the month of July because I actually did this on a live stream with my channel members this month, which is a little bit different, and I've been talking for ages about doing a black and white theme in my bullet journal actually, and I just find that I can't commit to it. The idea of a black and white theme in my bullet journal for some reason is really overwhelming. I feel like there's a lot of different ways that you can interpret a black and white theme, so rather than trying to do it in my bullet journal, I was like, let's rip off the band-aid and just do it in my reading journal instead, where I put a lot less pressure on myself to be perfect at things. These lace PET tapes really were sort of the jumping off point for this one. They're from the washi tape shop from the Baroque lace set, which came out recently, and I'm just using the black and the white in this one, but they do also have other colors included in the set too. And of course, waterfall tabs. I feel like I'm really in my waterfall tabs era right now, I suppose. I did them in my bullet journal for July, I did them last month in the reading journal, and I was like, let's just do it again, because why not? I'm using some plain black paper that's just from a set of like printer paper from Officeworks to line the right side of the right page with a torn edge. So I'm planning to letter July half on and half off this piece of paper, and we'll switch pens halfway through so that there's like a silver over the top of the black that's visible. But I wanted to get this stuck to the page before I cut off the right side of the right page. I do have one of those slidey guillotine straight edge cutting tools, but this journal is B5 sized, so this page won't actually fit in that thing, which means I have to do this the hard way. I also don't love where I cut the second page after this one, but that's okay, we can fix that. We'll fix it. I'll show you how I'm going to fix it. The grey washi tape I've used on that second page there is from Muji, and it's kind of a warmish green grey, so it's probably not the perfect choice, and it is the only grey that I've introduced in this setup, but it's still kind of monochromatic, right? I've decided that it's fine, it doesn't matter. This is the journal where I don't get picky about things, so I'm just adding some extra washi tape on behind that one, so it sort of looks like the waterfall tab effect continues even where the edge of the page isn't, and a little bit of paper was visible, so I grabbed the N79 Tombow, which is a pretty good match for that washi tape, and coloured over the top of that one so that it would kind of disappear into the page without me having to add more washi. The left page here is for my reading stats for the month, and this little frame that we're putting down now, this doily in black kind of situation, is where I'm going to put the standout book cover for the month. I'm just going to print it and put it right over the top of that sticker. I'm going to add some more black in the corners so that we've got this cohesive kind of black and white theme going on, and we're going to add some more reading stats things around that. I'm really basing this off what I did last month because it was really fun, and I liked the way the page looked at the end, although I haven't measured anything out beforehand. I'm kind of just jumping in and winging it because I was doing this on live with my lovely channel members and we were chatting while we were doing this, so it was a pretty chill fun time, but that meant not measuring things. I still think it came out looking pretty good despite that. I'm adding here a star ratings table, so for each kind of star rating I have, I can track next to that how many books I read that came up to that star rating. I did this kind of like a bar graph for the June stats, which you'll see later on. At the time I'm recording the voiceover, I've already done it, but at the time I was setting this up, I hadn't yet, so I didn't really know how this was going to function. To be honest, I don't know if I really like this star rating graph situation. I'm probably going to retire it next month, but I didn't know yet when I was setting this up that I wasn't going to like it in my June page, so that's okay. We learn as we go. Underneath that, I'm adding some pie charts, just some circles where I'm going to track page number, format, and the third one is going to be for library books versus books that I bought that I paid for. You would not believe how stingy I have become about books and spending on them since I got library memberships to really work for me, so thought it could be a fun addition to the stats. All of this stuff I track through Storygraph, and as far as the library/bought column, I've just added my own tags to books as I read them, so I tag them with library if they're a library book, I tag them with Kindle Unlimited if they're that, I tag them with Audible, I tag them with bought, and then it kind of gives me those stats at the end of each month. And I'm just using the inside of a washi tape roll to get my circles here because I couldn't find my handy circle ruler. I don't know where I put it. Other stats that we're tracking will be the average rating, which is just above the star ratings table thing, so I can just look at what the average is over the books of that month. Books completed at the top there. I did this as like a bookshelf last time, but I'm not doing that this time because honestly at this point in the month I didn't think I was going to be reading very many books, so I thought it would look a bit sad at the end of the month. I thought I'll just write the number there instead. And then down the bottom, total pages read, which Storygraph also very handily tracks for me despite the fact that I read a lot of audiobooks. It just converts them, which is nice. I added my July lettering on the right side there, and I'm just going to let that dry for a sec. I can actually see the black lettering on the black paper. It's like visible in real life, so I'm just going to go over that with a silver pen soon. But for now, we'll add some more lace at the top and bottom so this looks really nice and cohesive and interesting. Also, in case you were wondering, my sleeves in this are definitely my dressing gown because I did this in my pajamas first thing in the morning. So every time you see those light purple sleeves, you'll know Erin's in her pajamas or Erin is just cold, and now you know all my secrets. I'm using a silver brush marker here. This is actually a paint marker, so it would be nice and opaque on the black paper there. And I'm just going over the top of my July lettering from earlier. Not stoked with this lettering, to be honest. I feel like it got a bit wonky and not great, but that's okay. Because I like to line the back side of my waterfall tabs with the same washi that's on the facing side, I thought I'd add some grey to this one, and we're going to punch the corners of these so that they all look nice and intentional and rounded, because I just feel like that makes your waterfall tabs look fantastic every time. The cover and stats pages are all set up now, so I'm going to move on to the next spread, and this one's going to be where my progress calendar goes. And I'm not actually dividing up my section where I put the covers of the books this time into maybe next and then July reads. I'm just going to put them all together because I've got a lot of books on hold through the library, and there's a solid chance that I'm going to get to all of them because something about them being library books is highly motivating, so we're not going to worry too much about that. I wanted to mention the grid spacing guide information for my progress calendar here at the top, but I also want to mention like a little caveat here. This is a B5 journal, this is not A5, so depending on the size journal you're working with, this measurement might not work for you, so just wanted to put a little asterisk next to that one. I've left 2 dot grid spaces blank at the top of the page, so I've started 2 dot grid spaces down, and I've left another 2 dot grid spaces that I've coloured in black for the initial for each day of the week. And then all of the calendar boxes are 4 dot grid spaces tall by 4 dot grid spaces wide, so they're square. Which means if you wanted to do the exact same thing as me, then you can just kind of start counting from the inside corner. I've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday on the left page, and Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday on the right page. Just because of the waterfall tab orientation, the left page is a little bit narrower than the right page. And all that space underneath is where the book covers are going to go for books that I hopefully read in the month of July. And I've got one more themed page that I like to include month to month, and that's my Page Majors page. I like it to just kind of tie into my beginning of the month pages because I just feel like it looks nice with part of the theme. Even if the book doesn't always end up matching the colour scheme that I chose, for some reason, I don't know, this just gives it a little bit more of an elevation, you know, a bit more importance than maybe the other books in the month, because I just really enjoy this book club. And in case you are interested in joining my little book club, you need to be a channel member on the Page Majors level. There is a QR code on the screen right now, or you can hit the join link in the description down below if you want to find out more information. It's kind of like Patreon, but through YouTube, and that gives you access to my private Discord server that is only for channel members, and there we talk about books, especially one in particular every month. And this month, our Page Majors book is Feybound by Sara El Arifi. It was chosen by our lovely Page Mage Jacqueline. Thanks for choosing this one for us, Jacqueline. We're going to be reading this book together and then having a little chat about it at the end of the month in the Discord. So if you want to join in, you know where to find us. Now, I don't have a lot of books at this point in the month when I was filming to populate with my July reads section here, but I have had A Tempest of Tea on hold for ages, and it said it was coming through on July 3rd, so I thought I would put that book cover there too. It ended up coming through on the 29th, but I haven't started it yet, but hopefully soon. Back to the review pages now. The one we're working on here is The Ashes and the Star-Cursed King by Carissa Broadbent, which is the second book in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, and I guess the third book that I have read from it because there's a novella that takes place in between The Serpent and the Wings of Night and this one. I always wait until I have 4 book covers to print together, so there's a lot going on here that isn't actually the book that we're about to talk about, but don't worry about them for now. And I thought I'd use more of this black paper because I still had quite a bit of it on my desk from the setup for the July pages, so I just thought it would tie in really well with this book. It's kind of a dark themed fantasy, not dark like dark romance themed, but like it gets intense at times, so I feel like black kind of suits it. This glue tape is really annoying, by the way, in case you're wondering why I'm struggling with it a little bit here. It kind of like slides towards the bottom of the roll as you're using it, and you kind of have to push the tape back into the middle of the rolly bit. I'm going to put the book cover inside this frame. I just feel like this is perfect. The vampires in this story have wings. Rain has feathery wings, the main character dude, so I just thought that was perfect. The bottom was going to have a little bit peek out, so I just added some more black paper there and we're all good. And you know I love lettering fantasy headings, like fantasy book titles, so I'm using a kind of bronze coloured paint marker here, also from Ardex, like the silver one we used before, and I'm using that to letter the title of the book up the top here. This book took me a full month to read. Actually, the dates perfectly lined up. It was the 22nd of May to the 22nd of June. That is not a reflection on my enjoyment of the book though. Hello Mitsu. I really liked this book. So much so that it was a very strong contender for my favourite book of the month and almost made it into my book bracket, but something else pipped it at the post right at the very end of the month, so you'll have to stick around to find out which book that was. Something you need to know about me if you're also interested in books and want to get recommendations is that I am a sucker for any kind of romance story. I'm a wedding photographer in real life and have been for a really long time. I've been with my own partner for like 18 years. Love stories really speak to me. And if a book doesn't have a love story, like I'm still open to it, but if there is romance involved, I am just that much more engaged. And this book did romance really, really well, while also being a really interesting fantasy world with a fully realized kind of political system and these different races of different vampires and the way that they all work together. It's fantastic. I really do recommend these books. They're on Kindle Unlimited, so you don't necessarily have to pay to read them. If you have Kindle Unlimited, you can bet your bottom dollar that I will be reading more from Carissa Broadbent in the future. I'm very impressed with her work. Also, the dagger and rose sticker on the right side there, that's from Sticky, and it's just absolutely perfect for this series. It could not be more perfect. I love it so much. Pretty high core pile rating for this one. The total's coming in at 8, which means it is a 4.5-star read. Currently, the very top read of the month. Actually, the other book that is the other contender ended up with the same star rating, but a slightly higher core pile score, so it's the one that's going to go into the book bracket, but this one really gave it a good shot. If you aren't familiar with the book bracket, I'm not going to touch on it too much in this video, but it's a system where you kind of like battle your favorite book of each month against each other to work out what the top read of the year was. And it's just a bit of fun. Like, there's nothing really scientific about it. I just enjoy it. It's enjoyable. I'm adding some stuff to the progress tracker here too. By this point, I had finished I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston, which is good timing because I wanted to read it this month. Not that Pride Month is the only time that you can read like LGBTQI+ books, but it is one, and I wanted to make sure that there was at least one. Ended up with 2 represented, which is always good. But I'm going to set up my review pages a bit out of order because I wanted to do the Wolves and Daggers page mages one here first, because I actually shot this the same morning that we were having our little call about this book on the Discord. So I wanted to make sure I had my thoughts really laid out, and I have questions for discussion that I kind of like host and guide the chat through with those questions. So I wanted to make sure I had my own answers for them sorted out. About this book, I don't know if I'd recommend it. I do believe this one may have been self-published. I'm not sure. It definitely could have done with some more editing. That was a consensus from all of the page mages. We all kind of agreed it wasn't very well written, but the concept of this book is really good. It's supposed to be a kind of steampunk Red Riding Hood retelling in Victorian England, where the werewolves are kind of like taken over, and Little Red Riding Hood works for a government agency that like controls the supernatural being population in London. Sounds great, right? Unfortunately, in execution, it wasn't. But if you're into kind of a less polished story, if you don't kind of look for really amazing writing in a book, you might really enjoy this one. It did have a pretty good Goodreads rating, just isn't for me, unfortunately. It is free on Kindle though, so, you know, at least you're not spending any money on it if you don't then enjoy the experience. This one got a core pile rating of 4.14 from me, which gives it 2.5. I feel like that may even be a little generous. When I polled the other page mages who had read this book, the rating was generally for most of us about a 2. One of our page mages gave it an absolute flat 0, did not enjoy the experience at all, so not one of our high-rated book club books, but this is part of the experience, right? Whether we're suggesting books for a book club experience that we've read before, or if we want to have that first-time reading a book experience with other people, you never kind of know how things are going to turn out, but I think that's fun, to read something that maybe you wouldn't have picked up otherwise. I feel like that's what makes book clubs really fun to me. We're going to move on to a book that I did enjoy here. This is the page that I'm setting up for I Kissed Shara Wheeler by Casey McQuiston. I have read 2 of Casey McQuiston's books in the past. I read Red, White and Royal Blue and it knocked my socks off. Absolutely amazing, love it so much. I read one last stop, also really enjoyed that one, maybe not quite to the same level, but still fantastic. Casey McQuiston really has a way with found family as a trope, especially. I find coming of age is a big theme in a lot of their books. And I feel like they kind of fall into a YA category, but without the sort of simpleness that you quite often get from a YA character that's not in a fantasy setting. I feel like Casey McQuiston's characters are really complex and believable, and also learning so much about themselves, and I just love the way that they write. I really enjoy Casey's writing. This is the first time I've consumed a Casey McQuiston book on audiobook though, and I do feel like there is something lost in the experience because the way they write is very unusual. And it took me a while to get used to it when I first read Red, White and Royal Blue, and then I was kind of looking forward to it for this one, and you definitely don't get that experience if you don't have the page with this one. So the audiobook was great. I don't not recommend it, but if you like Casey McQuiston's writing and you've read it with your eyeballs before, I recommend sticking to your eyeballs for this one. Quick plot synopsis for this one. So the main popular girlie at school, Shara Wheeler, she's like the perfect girl. She gets great grades, she gets great everything. She's like the daughter of the principal and they're a very Christian family because this is Alabama. She randomly kisses 3 students of various genders and backgrounds and then kind of like drops off the face of the earth and communicates only through pale pink letters that she leaves around the place with kind of puzzle hints for people to try and work out where she is. Also, I ran out of Corpal rating stickers, so I have just very quickly made some more. If you'd like to get some of these Corpal rating stickers for yourself, I have a link to a printable in the description down below. So I'm just going to keep some to the side and tuck some away. Anyway, our main character, Chloe, is one of the people who was randomly kissed by Shara Wheeler, and she's kind of her biggest rival and is very confused by the whole thing. But she goes on this kind of adventure trying to work out everything from the clues in Shara's letters, and it's a ride, and she learns a lot about herself and a lot about the people around her through the process. Something I think this book did particularly well is handling our main character's sort of an atheist character in this very Christian setting, and the way that it approaches religion is very respectful while also being quite critical. I just feel like it walked that line really well, particularly given that so many of the characters in this book are queer. But I think that's actually Casey McQuiston drawing on their own life experience there, so that makes total sense that it was done so gracefully, because of course it was. Pretty decent rating on this one. I've given it 7.14 on the Corpal scale, which means that it is a 4-star read from me. Because I'm doing so much of my reading through the library at the moment, I spent a little while just going through the available now and the reserves of things that I wanted to maybe read for the coming month in the library, just putting things on hold. So now that I know what those are, I can add those to my July reads page and make them kind of a hopeful here. I always need to have 2 of every book cover because I'll have one on this kind of wrap up overall page and I'll have one on each review page as well. So that's why I sometimes have 2 of the same book cover printed at the same time. The titles I'm adding here, I've got The Honeymoon Crashes by Christina Lauren, which is kind of a novella follow-up, I think, to The Unhoneymooners, which I read recently. I've got Starling House by Alex E. Harrow, been hearing great things about that one, and Powerless by Elsie Silver, which is the next in the Chestnut Springs series. Also back on the current progress page, I'm adding Below Zero by Ali Hazelwood, which is one of her feminist novellas. Ooh, lots to say, but let's set up a page here. So I'm actually reverting to a system I used to use in my previous reading journal that was in an A5 book. When I didn't feel like I had the right ephemera, or I didn't feel like I enjoyed a book enough, or I just wasn't up to doing a full decorated page for a book, I would do this kind of simplified review in a box kind of situation. And because the last 2 books that I've read in the month of June were both novellas, I thought rather than giving them each a whole page and kind of throwing off my system because of where the July pages start, I thought I'd just go back to this older system and do my reviews like this, because they didn't really need to have anything too fancy decorative. I was running out of time. I was getting kind of like over setting up reading journal things because I'm on a bit of a deadline, got to get the video out. So I thought, let's go with this system. And it's a really good way to do it. I think I actually originally borrowed it from Rochelle in Theory. I think that's where I got this system from to begin with, although I used to put data here where I'm putting the Corpal rating sticker. Literally just a column on the left for the book, the star rating and the Corpal rating, and on the right side I'll write the title and I'll write my review, and that's it. It's so quick and easy, especially in a B5 book like this because there's so much room on the page. Like, this is a pretty easy way to pull it off. So maybe next time, sorry I keep calling it that, maybe this time is the one on the top. It's by Cara Bastone. It's one of the Audible originals, so it's free on Audible to listen to. It's a novella. It's very cute. It's got a full cast. I really enjoy Cara Bastone's works on Audible. They're a little cheesy sometimes, but so much fun. So Definitely recommend. I'm going to do the review for that one first, and then Below Zero, underneath that by Ali Hazelwood, also a novella. So let's start with Maybe This Time. This is a very interesting one. My friend Rachel was reading it, and I was like, oh yeah, Cara Bastone exists, and so I also read it after that, just adding some little clocks here, because this is a time slip story, and I love a little time slip in my rom-coms. This one's very fluffy, all of her works are. I really enjoy them, but the male main character in this one is ultra simpy. Like, he's really just like, I don't have a personality except for being in love with this girl, which, if you're into that, is fine, but I would have liked him to have a little bit more backbone, you know? He's supposed to be a sports person, so would have expected that from him. But it was still really fun. His lovely lady love is stuck in the future and has a phone that can somehow only call him in the past, so she's trying to get him to be friends with her so that he can talk her into not doing whatever it was that sent her into the future in the first place. And it was a very fun ride, and it's very quick, like you can knock it out in a day. I gave it 6.57, which is 3 3/4 stars on the Corpal rating system. Not the best ever of hers that I've read, mostly just because the dude was a little bit too pathetic, but I still enjoyed it. However, Below Zero by Ali Hazelwood. Oh my goodness, Ali Hazelwood. She's a one-trick pony. I mean, she's not, because she did Bride earlier this year, which was a vampire romance, and werewolves. She is a bit of a one-trick pony when it comes to the women in STEM romance stories, but my god, does she do them well. It used to bother me that it was kind of the same story over and over, but it really doesn't anymore because she's just so good at it. This one is a novella. I got it through the library on ebook, and I read it in one go. I stayed up much too late reading. I didn't intend to, but it got me. It sunk its teeth into me. It does have some of the usual Ali Hazelwood stuff with tiny female main character, giant male main character. They both work in science. They both work for NASA in this one, working on the rovers that go and explore Mars or whatever. I don't even know if I can really accurately explain to you why I loved it so much, only that I did. And it's funny because as I was working out my Corpal rating for this, I kept coming, if I wasn't using the Corpal system, I would have just given this a flat 5 stars if I wasn't kind of rating it by any kind of criteria. So when I added up the Corpal score I came out with originally, I wasn't happy with it. It didn't feel high enough. And I was like, well, maybe I need to adjust some of the numbers a bit. This is the first time this has happened to me. It actually motivated me to go back to my Corpal rating reference page and work out what the quarter star rating thresholds are so that I can really be firm on those. But hey, we still came out with the highest rated book for the month, 4.5 stars, not too shabby. That is 8.28 on the Corpal scale. And look, that's just going to have to be my book of the month. I thought about maybe, does it not count because it's a novella? But it really is the book that I enjoyed the most, so we're just going to roll with it. It is my number one book of the month, Below Zero by Ali Hazelwood. Also, it is the third in a series of novellas, and I have just read them out of order, apparently, because I haven't read the other two. I'm reading the first one now, at the moment in July when you're watching this, but that's just how it worked out this time. I read the third one first. I don't think it matters. I think it's fine. Adding some more books to my July reads, because I needed to do some more book cover printing, of course. We've got The Switch by Beth O'Leary, which I've been meaning to read forever. Feybound, because that's our Page Majors book club book. I've got Under One Roof, which is the first in that series of novellas, and I can tell you right now already, I'm only 30% in, but it's not as good. It's not as good as Below Zero. It's good, but it's not as good. And back here on the Page Majors page, I wanted to add my Feybound book cover here because that is our book for July. We have established that already, but in case you forgot, that's our book for July. I'm also going to flip back to that overall book list of all of the books that I read this year because we've got a few extra things to add there, don't we? I read some more books. I'm actually starting to think I'm going to run out of pages in this book before the year ends, so that's going to be interesting. I may end up needing to start my next reading journal not for the beginning of the year. That's totally fine. Got to add some extra colouring into my goal here because I'm at 52 books for the midway point of the year, which is not bad. That puts me a little bit ahead of my goal, which is 100. And I wanted to colour in this box here with a grey pen too, because that's going to be the colour that I use for July. Now let's jump over to the stats page for June and fill out all of these fun stats. I really look forward to this part. This is so much fun. I ended up with 8 books total completed for the month, which is way ahead of what I thought I was going to hit. Just colouring in my little bookshelf at the top here to make sure that 8 books are coloured in to represent that. And I'm also going to write it in the circle that's at the end of the bookshelf too and colour that in so it all sort of goes together. Total pages read ended up being 2,686, which is pretty good. Catch me accidentally colouring in that circle like it's a magic 8-ball now. The page number section is for like how many books I read that have whatever page count. So I ended up with 50% of the books I read having 300 to 499 pages. 13% of the books I read had more than 500 pages and 38% had less than 300 pages. Also, I tried to peel up that PET tape to colour behind it and it ripped the page, so I'm just going to leave it. I just realised while I'm doing this voiceover that the format percentages that Storygraph has given me are a little bit off, but it said 63% audio to 38% digital. That makes 101%, so let's just assume that it's 62% audio and that I didn't just mindlessly write down what it told me. Cool. My average rating for the month was 3.75, so a little bit short of 4 stars. I think that's pretty good. And I tried to do this bar graph kind of situation for the star ratings, and I don't really love how it turned out, which is why I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have brought this into July, but I couldn't have known. I hadn't done it yet. So, you know, I think I had 2 books. See, I don't keep my star ratings to the solid whole star, so that's why this is hard, but you know, no more than 2 books at a single star rating. And the library versus bought ones are actually kind of funny for this month. So I didn't actually end up buying any of the books that I read this month. My library books made up something like 62.5% of the books that I read, and everything else was Kindle Unlimited or Audible Original anyway, so I didn't buy those either. Below Zero was obviously my standout book. I've frothed about it already. It's going to go in this spot, but we'll print a cover for it in a minute. And I just wanted to flip back to the book bracket and add its name there as well. These ones I have to print off in a very particular size, so I like to wait until I have to do a few at a time, and I'm just going to write it there for now. We'll do that part together later. But here is a little flip through of my completed June spreads, everything that I read in the month of June 2024, and also my July reading tracker pages all set up. Thank you so much for planning with me and reading with me throughout the month of June. I hope you enjoyed this video. As always, please comment below your standout book for the month of June. I'm very curious to hear which book it was that really caught your eye and buried itself into your soul and became part of you. I hope July is a wonderful reading month for you too. I make one of these reading journal kind of everything that I read in the previous month videos at the beginning of every month, so I do have plenty of these that I've made in the past in case you'd like to keep watching. I'll make sure there is a link to a playlist of those right at the end. And the most recent video I posted before this one was a wrap up of all of the journals that I am using concurrently right now, so if you'd like to check that out, there is a link to it on the screen right now.